A wool blanket will keep you warmer than any sleeping bag, cost 90% less. The difference isn't just price, it's physics most of us completely misunderstand. Synthetic sleeping bags trap heat through loft. Tiny air pockets between fibers create insulation. Sounds brilliant until the bag gets wet. Wool operates differently. The fibers themselves contain microscopic air bubbles. Even soaking wet, wool retains roughly 70% of its insulating ability. Your body heat stays trapped regardless of moisture. Here's what surprises people. A $15 thrift store wool blanket outperforms a $200 mummy bag in most homeless survival scenarios. Because homeless camps deal with constant moisture, synthetic bags become useless within days. Military surplus stores sell these blankets by the thousands. They're the same ones armies used for a century before modern materials existed. I watched a guy pull one from a flooded tent, wring it out like a towel, wrap himself up, and fall asleep 20 minutes later. The weight issue bothers people who have never been homeless. Backpackers obsess over ounces. Homeless folks aren't hiking the Appalachian Trail. An extra 5 pounds means nothing when warmth is the difference between sleeping and dying. But there's something nobody mentions in survival forums. Wool doesn't look valuable. A homeless person wrapped in a wool blanket appears exactly how society expects them to look. Wearing a $400 sleeping bag, that's suspicious. People ask questions. Police get called. Experienced rough sleepers layer 2 thrift store blankets instead of buying one expensive item. Total cost, maybe $25. Combined insulation exceeds most consumer sleeping bags. If one gets stolen, you're not completely screwed. Now about fire resistance. Wool is naturally flame retardant. It smolders rather than bursting into flames like synthetic materials. Accidental contact happens constantly. Synthetic bags melt to skin. Wool just develops a small char mark. Emergency rooms see burn victims weekly from melted sleeping bag material. The moisture management goes deeper than just staying warm when wet. Wool actually wicks moisture away from your body while you sleep. Sweat that would normally soak into a cotton shirt or synthetic bag lining gets pulled into the wool fibers and released into the air. Durability separates wool from everything else. A quality wool blanket lasts decades with zero maintenance. No zippers to break, no baffles to tear, no coatings to delaminate, just fabric that gets softer with age. Homeless advocates report blankets circulating through communities for 10+ years. Same blanket, different people, still functional. There's a psychological component too. A blanket suggests comfort, normalcy, the thing your grandmother tucked you in with. Small distinction, massive mental health impact when you're living outside indefinitely. But wool's real secret is the smell factor. Synthetic materials trap body odor within days. The chemical fibers hold onto bacteria that create that distinctive homeless smell people avoid. Wool naturally resists bacterial growth. The lanolin in the fibers actively prevents odor-causing microbes from establishing colonies. A wool blanket used for months smells less offensive than a synthetic bag used for weeks. Let's talk about the grade differences because not all wool is equal. Military surplus blankets contain at least 70% wool content, usually more. Those cheap Walmart throws marked wool, maybe 30% actual wool mixed with synthetic fibers. They'll work in moderate cold but fail in serious winter conditions. Real wool feels substantially heavier than synthetic blends. Color matters in ways most people miss. Dark colors absorb solar heat during the day. A black or navy wool blanket left in sun for an hour becomes a portable heater. Homeless veterans know this. They're rotating blankets seasonally like a wardrobe. Some shelters ban sleeping bags but allow blankets. The reasoning is absurd, but the policy exists. Something about sleeping bags indicating people plan to stay outside rather than seeking services. Bureaucratic logic aside, it makes wool blankets the only legal option in certain cities. Here's what changed my understanding completely. I spent a week testing this myself. 30-degree nights, one wool blanket versus my expensive down bag. The down bag felt lighter, packed smaller, seemed more advanced. The wool blanket kept me warmer, not slightly warmer, noticeably, measurably warmer. So if wool blankets dominate for warmth and cost practically nothing, what's the second most critical item? Because staying warm solves one problem, but creates another that most people never consider until it's too late. Condensation. Every breath you take releases moisture into the air around you. In a sealed sleeping environment, that moisture has nowhere to go except onto every surface it touches. Your blanket, your clothes, the inside of your shelter. By morning, everything feels damp. The moisture management game starts before you even lay down. Vapor barrier liners sound technical, but they're stupidly simple. A large plastic trash bag. That's it. You climb inside the bag wearing your clothes, then wrap yourself in the wool blanket. Your body moisture gets trapped against your skin instead of soaking into the blanket. Sounds uncomfortable, and it absolutely is for the first 20 minutes. Then your microclimate stabilizes and you stop noticing. You wake up with a damp shirt but a bone-dry blanket. Some people can't handle the clammy feeling. Fair enough. The alternative is strategic ventilation. Leave a gap at the top of your blanket wrap. Not a huge opening, just enough for moisture to escape without creating a heat loss tunnel. Sleeping position matters more than anyone admits. Fetal position minimizes surface area exposed to cold air. Sprawling out like a starfish maximizes heat loss. Every extended limb is a thermal bridge conducting warmth away from your core. Children naturally curl up when cold. Adults fight this instinct and pay for it. Ground insulation deserves its own discussion because the earth is a massive heat sink. Dirt, concrete, even grass pulls warmth from your body all night long. No amount of blanket coverage stops this. You need a barrier between you and the ground. Cardboard works. Newspapers layered 6 sheets thick work better. Foam sleeping pads are ideal but cost money most homeless people don't have. Liquor stores throw out boxes daily. The corrugated stuff, not thin cardboard. Stack 4 or 5 flattened boxes and you've got an insulation platform that blocks ground cold effectively. Gets soggy after rain, but that's why you collect extras and rotate them. Sleeping even 6 inches off the ground makes a measurable difference. Park benches aren't comfortable, but they solve the ground contact problem completely. Location selection becomes a calculated decision. Under bridges seems obvious, but it's usually wrong. Bridges create wind tunnels. That constant air movement strips away any warmth you generate. Plus, bridges attract groups, which attract police attention. Dense vegetation provides better results. Bushes and shrubs break wind, trap heat, offer concealment. Your body warmth has nowhere to escape, so it accumulates around you. Building placement matters in cities. The south side of structures receives maximum sun exposure during the day. That wall absorbs solar heat, then radiates it back out for hours after sunset. North sides of buildings never get this benefit. Parking garages offer unexpected advantages. The concrete retains vehicle heat long after cars leave. Upper levels stay warmer than ground floors because heat rises and gets trapped. Security tends to be minimal at night. The combination makes them prime locations despite seeming exposed. Steam vents from commercial buildings pump heat continuously. Laundromats, restaurants, any business running dryers or industrial equipment. The hot air exhaust has to go somewhere. Position yourself in that thermal plume and you're basically sleeping in a heated room. Smells like dryer sheets and French fries, but who's complaining? Timing your setup matters more than people think. Arrive too early and neighbors notice. Arrive too late and prime spots get claimed. The sweet spot is typically 9 to 10 at night, dark enough for concealment, early enough that you're not stumbling around drawing attention with flashlights. The goal is becoming invisible before the morning routine starts. Joggers, dog walkers, commuters heading to work. All of them are observant when fresh. This whole system requires what homeless advocates call situational awareness, constantly scanning for threats, opportunities. It's exhausting and it never stops. Your brain can't fully rest because part of it always stays alert. Sleep quality suffers even when you're physically warm. After weeks of hypervigilance, decision-making deteriorates. Simple choices become overwhelming. This is when mistakes happen. Someone picks a terrible location because they're too tired to scout properly. They sleep through their alarm and get caught by morning shift workers. Support networks prevent these failures. Even 2 people working together can maintain better awareness than 1 person alone. Rotating watch schedules let each person actually sleep. Shared knowledge about safe locations and danger zones keeps both people safer. The lone wolf approach sounds independent, but it's functionally stupid. Staying warm and dry solves the physical survival equation, but there's a separate battle happening simultaneously that determines who makes it long-term, because your body can be comfortable while your mind completely falls apart. Mental collapse happens in stages, and most people don't recognize the signs until they're already deep in trouble. First comes the identity crisis. You stop thinking of yourself as a person with a home who's temporarily displaced. Instead, you become a homeless person. That shift sounds subtle, but it rewrites everything. Suddenly asking for help feels impossible because you've accepted a permanent label. Experienced street survivors reject this mental trap completely. They maintain their pre-homeless identity like it's a lifeline. Former teacher, retired electrician, laid-off accountant. Whatever they were before, that's still who they are. The circumstances changed, but the person didn't. Routine becomes medicine for the mind. Wake at the same time. Pack your gear in the same order. Visit the same coffee shop. Predictability creates stability when everything else is chaos. Your brain craves patterns. Give it patterns and anxiety decreases. Lose all structure and mental health collapses within weeks. Hygiene maintenance serves a dual purpose. Obviously, it keeps you healthy and socially acceptable, but it also reinforces that you're still a functioning human being who deserves basic dignity. Skipping showers for a week because you're depressed creates a feedback loop. Breaking this cycle requires almost aggressive self-care. Daily washing even if it's just a gas station sink. Clean clothes even if you're rotating the same 3 shirts. Brushing teeth twice a day like you're preparing for a dental exam. These small acts declare that you still matter. Social connection might be the most critical survival factor nobody discusses. Humans aren't designed for isolation. We're pack animals. Extended loneliness literally damages brain function. Studies show isolation increases mortality risk by 30%. That's comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes daily. The challenge is finding safe social contact when you're living rough. Libraries work well. Regulars develop informal communities. Same people at the same computers every afternoon. Eventually you nod. Then you talk. Suddenly you have acquaintances who notice if you disappear. Online forums have created virtual support networks. Homeless people with smartphone access share real-time information, which cops are hassling people, which shelters have open beds, where day labor jobs are hiring. This digital layer provides connection even when physically alone. The technology gap is real though. Not everyone has devices or data plans. The purpose might matter more than comfort. People surviving long-term homelessness almost universally maintain some form of meaningful activity. Collecting cans provides income but also structure and accomplishment. Helping other homeless people creates purpose beyond mere survival. Even keeping a journal transforms endless days into documented experience. The activity itself matters less than having something that feels important. Viktor Frankl survived concentration camps by maintaining purpose. His psychological framework applies directly here. When you can't control circumstances, you control your response. When you can't change reality, you control what it means. Finding meaning in suffering doesn't eliminate suffering, but it makes survival possible. Documentation becomes unexpectedly important. Taking photos of your setup, writing down what works, recording temperatures and sleep quality. This transforms random survival into systematic problem solving. You're not just enduring, you're experimenting and improving. That mental shift changes everything. Scientists don't just suffer through failed experiments, they learn from them. The trick is maintaining modest expectations about tomorrow while refusing to accept permanent defeat. Maybe you'll find better work next month. Maybe housing assistance comes through eventually. Maybe is enough to keep moving forward without setting yourself up for devastating letdowns. Gratitude practice sounds like nonsense until you try it. Mentally noting 3 things that didn't go wrong today: the cop who didn't hassle you, the meal that tasted decent, the dry spot that stayed dry. It's rewiring your brain to notice small wins instead of only tracking losses. Depression makes you blind to anything good. Deliberate gratitude corrects that blindness. The physical and mental survival systems interconnect constantly. Cold disrupts sleep, which impairs decision-making, which leads to poor location choices, which increases danger, which spikes anxiety, which further disrupts sleep. Breaking this cycle at any point helps everything else. Warm sleeping spot improves rest. Better rest sharpens thinking. Clearer thinking finds safer locations. Safety reduces stress. Lower stress improves sleep quality. Exit strategies separate temporary homelessness from permanent status. Maintaining identification documents. Keeping a mailing address somehow. Staying connected to former employers or references. These small anchors to conventional life create pathways back. Lose all documentation and you're trapped. No ID means no job means no housing means no ID. The cycle becomes nearly impossible to break. Some people escape within months, others stay stuck for years. The difference usually isn't effort or character. It's whether support systems survived the initial crisis, family willing to help, friends offering couches, former colleagues providing references. Those social safety nets determine outcomes more than individual determination does. Pretending otherwise is comfortable fiction. The real measure of these survival techniques isn't comfort. It's whether you wake up tomorrow still capable of trying, whether your body temperature stayed safe enough, whether your mind remained intact enough, whether you maintained enough dignity to keep fighting. Cold weather homelessness strips away everything non-essential. What remains is raw human persistence. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes it isn't. But the techniques we've covered maximize your odds of being in that first category. And in situations this desperate, odds are all anyone gets. Wool blankets, vapor barriers, ground insulation, strategic locations. These aren't outdoor recreation tips. They're the difference between surviving January and becoming a statistic nobody counts. The homeless figured out what works through brutal trial and error, while the rest of us bought expensive gear that fails in actual crisis conditions. Their knowledge isn't inferior survival craft. It's superior problem solving with zero budget and maximum consequences for failure. Next time you see someone wrapped in wool under a bridge, understand they're not doing it wrong. They're doing it right with what they have. And if circumstances ever put you there, now you know why.